Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of the Contested Long 2 cast. That's the official name, not Contested Long 2 podcast. Just kidding, it's actually Contested Long 2 podcast, but we'll consider changing it eventually.
I'm confused.
Okay, great. I'm your host, Scott Levine, along with the other host here, Ethan Giles.
This is me.
Yes, Ethan is having a wonderful day, aren't you, Ethan?
Swell.
Excellent. So, we're going to talk a lot about trading because teams are looking to blow it up. Reportedly, again, yeah, you can't really ensure too much, but we're hearing the first rumblings of the trade deadline period. So, we thought this would be a good time to kind of discuss which teams should trade for what, who should go where. We're going to start with the Atlanta Hawks just because they've probably had the most noise around them out of any organization lately.
Can I just make a note about fake trades first?
Of course.
So, we don't think these are going to happen.
Right.
This is fake trades are just for fun. It's a fun experiment. Have fun with us.
Excellent, yes. Another point I would like to make, we might be instances in which Jeff Teague or Paul Millsap or Al Horford go to mediocre teams, and we don't actually think that those teams should make that trade usually. A lot of times it isn't really good to give away future assets for a 27-year-old point guard or a 30-year-old power forward or a 32, 31-year-old center. We don't actually want other teams to do this. We're just looking for what other teams might do and what we would do if we were Atlanta, mostly.
Yeah, and in the case of Horford, he's a free agent after this year, so that especially reduces his value.
Oh, for sure, exactly. That's a good point, too. And Paul Millsap obviously has a very large contract. You have to probably give up a decent player to get him, or just if you have a lot of like salary filler on your contract, that'd be the other way. So let's actually start with just the idea that a lot of teams are blowing it up and are realizing that they can't beat the Warriors. So why continue on with this?
Yeah, it's tough. So, like, let's say you're the Clippers, and you're a team that is, on paper, very, very talented.
Yeah.
And we have seen play well as a unit in the playoffs before, last year against the Spurs. The Rockets series for the first 4 games. Like, they're a really, actually good team. They're not beating Golden State. That's not really their fault. Golden State's just perfect.
Right.
So if you're a team like the Clippers, do you just try to maximize this team now and, like, see how far you can get? Maybe if Steph Curry gets hurt and the Spurs mess up again, then you never know. Or do you just say, we're going to try to win 3 or 4 years from now? Because in this year, next year, and probably the year after, we don't have a chance.
Right. Yeah, it's a very good point. And I think a lot of teams are getting smarter about not just being content about trotting out a 50-win team that doesn't have a chance in the playoffs. So this brings me to the next question: are we going to see more trades now that this is the case?
It's hard for me to say just because I've never seen anything like this before. I've never seen a super team.
Right.
The way that we see with Golden State now.
Right.
And it's such like a different it's a different landscape than it was 2 years ago, a year ago even. So like I want to say yes because that would but it also makes sense that teams don't want to give up future assets, which would make it even harder to trade. So I'm going to guess yes, but I don't really have a good idea.
Yeah, that's another thing is I think the more teams wisen up, and especially if the Warriors are able to sustain their level of dominance, as long as there is a super team, I think that there won't be less or more trades. If anything, there'll be less trades potentially just because the bar is so high that teams just want to prepare for the future and don't want to trade away future assets to get, kind of a quick fix, a Jeff Teague, Al Horford, or a Paul Millsap, a guy that probably won't put your franchise over the top by himself, but can help out an already good team. But it seems like they are not the difference between a lot of teams and the Warriors.
It also, I think that's probably the consensus among general managers. Owners is a whole different ballgame. If you're an owner, maybe your best case scenario is to win 50 games, not win a championship, get a ton of money from playoff revenue and other stuff like that. And then you can maximize your team this year because more good players are available for trade now because the Warriors are so good. So it's such like everyone has different incentives,
Yeah.
so we're not really sure how it's all going to shake out.
At this point, I think, Mikhail Prokhorov would love to be just Robert Parra, owner of the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
A beloved team, a team that doesn't really have a chance in the championship, but has a fan base and does well every year.
Yeah, they got to the conference finals one year, which if 7 years ago, if I told you the Grizzlies would have like the next 7 years being like playoffs every year in the conference championship one year and beat the Spurs in a series one year, you'd be surprised.
Exactly.
They took a shame to beat the second pick in the draft.
Exactly. Things are going pretty well, and while it's good to be optimistic about that, I think again we are seeing teams being more pessimistic about winning 50 games when there isn't really a clear path anymore. Like it's not like 2012 Celtics where you can just kind of win 50 games and then get to the conference semis. I mean that is possible in the East still, and
it's likely in the East.
Yeah. That's a very good point actually. But as long as the Warriors are in the finals, you didn't really have a Warriors team waiting for you in the finals if you did get to the conference finals and did get past LeBron's 2012 Heat. So
right now, in terms of this landscape, like Cleveland has its warts, and we're going to talk about them, and they'll be featured in a few of our trades, I'd assume. But like, there's no Eastern team is gonna beat LeBron, like these Cavs in the playoffs.
Right.
Like they are such a better team than everyone else, even with their warts.
Right. So yeah, let's actually just barring the kind of letting go of the knowledge that other teams probably shouldn't trade for Millsap or a Horford or a Teague. We're just gonna assume they want to regardless, just because otherwise fake trades can't exist.
Or see if we can get a justification. Like if you can.
Sure. That's I couldn't personally. Okay. I couldn't. Maybe I think I had one pseudo justification in all of my trades. I thought of about 3 or 4, and I got one that would I was like, I can make a case for that. I think for that team.
Yeah. Okay. You want to go first?
Yeah, let's start with Jeff Teague, since he's been on the seat the most. First of all, what do you think of them putting Jeff Teague out first?
It both makes sense and doesn't make sense. It makes sense in the way of if Atlanta's looking and they're not going to win the title this year, and they want to build for the future. You have a young point guard in Dennis Schroeder, who isn't perfect, but is young and has potential, and a guy who I've always personally liked.
Yeah.
And if you want to maximize Dennis Schroeder going forward, the way you do that is by getting rid of Jeff Teague. At the same time, there is a very real chance that in 4 years from now, Jeff Teague is still better than Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah.
Even with Jeff Teague being eclipsing 30 and Dennis Schroeder entering his prime.
Right.
I would not be that surprised if Teague is still better than Schroeder.
Right.
And so it's a battle that you have all the time of projection versus reality.
Yeah.
I guess I would trade Teague if I'm them. I don't dislike trading Teague because you can get more for him that help build around Schroeder in that way. But it's not without its
yeah. It definitely seems like it wouldn't make sense to trade Teague if you're not also going to trade your other veteran players. Just because I don't think they are a conference finals team with Schroeder at point guard.
Probably not. It also
unless he just makes a big leap. But this is all speculation, and I'd say it's more likely than not that he's not really ready to help and play 34 minutes for Atlanta Hawks this season.
Right, and it also depends on who you're getting back, obviously, and the fact that they're now the report was that they're considering hitting the reset button.
Right.
And the fact that they're doing this now, like mid-season 2015-2016 season, in the 2015 draft, they traded away their first-round pick for Tim Hardaway Jr. And we all said that was crazy, but at the time we're like, okay, they want to win this year, so that still doesn't really make sense, but at least there's some sort of logic behind it.
Right.
Now, how did it go that quickly to let's blow it up? You could have had Bobby Portis, who is a not perfect replacement, but a decent guy to have if Al Horford leaves. You could have had so many other guys there. And they instead chose to trade for Tim Hardaway Jr. It makes that
we can agree that
nonsensical.
That trade was terrible. Unless you think Tim Hardaway Jr. has really good upside going forward, I would disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, and so I'd rather have Jerry and Grant on my team in pretty much every scenario, or whoever they would end up picking with that pick. That was a head scratcher. But disregarding that, just focusing on the fact that they are going to blow it up.
Yeah.
Here's what I could think of for Jeff Teague. I know you kind of focus a little bit more on Al Horford, and I focus a little bit more on Jeff Teague and Millsap. So I'm just going to read the trade, and none of them are like perfect, I would say, but they're definitely something we can work with and start a conversation around. All right, so my first idea is 1 second. Let me get my notes up. My first idea is with Milwaukee.
Okay.
Yep. I know New York's kind of been in the picture, but I couldn't really find as good of a trade with New York.
Yeah, the Knicks don't.
They don't really just have that many assets.
Kyle O'Quinn. But
yeah. I guess Kyle O'Quinn is a decent asset considering he's only $4 million a year, but he's no more than like a cost controlled. Yeah, exactly. You're gonna need a lot more than Kyle O'Quinn. So here's what I thought of for Milwaukee. Rashad Vaughn, Teague for Rashad Vaughn, Miles Plumlee, Jared Bayless, 2018 top 10 protected first rounder.
I mean, I like that trade.
Yeah, sure.
I understand why both sides would do it.
Yeah.
If I'm Milwaukee, they actually, never mind. I thought they had the Clipper pick, but they don't anymore because they gave it up for Grievous Vasquez.
Right. And obviously, it wouldn't really make sense for Milwaukee to do this.
If you're saying that they're championship or bust. I probably don't do it for Milwaukee just because I don't know if Jeff Teague gets into the playoffs regardless. It's actually kind of funny because Teague signed in Milwaukee before.
Really?
Yeah. Well, he was a restricted free agent.
That's interesting.
It was when Larry Drew was coaching the Bucks.
Oh, okay.
But that's really interesting. I would say no. I think Milwaukee says no.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. They're definitely better off keeping Vaughn and keeping all their first round picks.
Yeah.
But they're not really quite the team that can kind of sell themselves on like if we just get Jeff Teague we'll be good. Even if Giannis and Jabari emerge, they might not enjoy their best years with the best Jeff Teague.
Yeah. Question for you though: what if instead of the first round pick in Vaughn, you put an MCW? I mean, I guess
instead of Vaughn in the first round pick.
Yeah.
I don't think that's enough for the Hawks to do.
Yeah, the Hawks should say no to that.
Yeah, the Hawks should get value.
Yeah.
I can never tell if you're joking whenever you are doing something that involves assessing MCW.
Yeah, no, well that was just more because a year ago they gave up Brandon Knight for him.
Yeah, that's fair.
He at least had some value for someone last year.
Yeah.
So maybe, but and I would do that in a second if I'm Milwaukee.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If I'm Atlanta,
that's bailing you out. Then it's like Brandon Knight for Jeff Teague. That's a trade I can live with.
Yeah.
Unlike this trade. Yeah. And maybe it wasn't a bad trade because Brandon Knight has been really bad in Phoenix. It's probably because he doesn't have an NBA team around him, but it's definitely not helping his case.
The argument that trading Brandon Knight wasn't wrong. The argument for trading for MCW.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. And another thing about trading for Jeff Teague is the fact that they're shopping him first. Another thing that I should have mentioned earlier, and I didn't because I'm still working out how to organize a podcast presentation. But do you think they think he's slightly overrated because they're shopping him first, and they think he won't be as good as soon as you get rid of Millsap, as soon as you get rid of Al Horford?
Right. The team, at least last year's team that he was on, and this year's as well to a certain extent, is the perfect place for any point guard.
Yeah.
You have two bigs that can shoot. You have last year they had Damari Carroll, who was an incredible defensive wing who could shoot, and then Kent Bazemore's filling that role for them as well this year. And then who was their starting shooting guard last year?
Korver.
Oh, of course, the best shooter in the league outside of Curry.
Yeah.
So
that year he was.
Yeah. So how can you ask for a better situation to put a point guard?
Exactly.
So I definitely think he'll go wherever he goes, unless it's to the Warriors, and he won't do. And he's obviously not going there, but he won't do as well wherever he goes. Right. But it doesn't mean that he's a bad player.
For sure.
He'll still be solid. He's not a bad point guard in any measure.
But it definitely seems like it's a kind of an effort to sell high. Just because he probably looks best among this specific lineup.
I believe that next year is the last year of his contract. You're not going to get value for him next year, so you want to get value for him.
Right, of course.
Which makes some sense.
But his numbers have taken a slight dip this year. He is shooting 38.7 from 3, which is above what he normally does, and that's a good sign for him going forward. But his finishing from inside, he is 51.7% in the key in like the restricted area.
Right.
The restricted area,
Yeah.
the restricted area and a little bit around it, 52.3%, and he is actually 46.7% from inside there this season. So he's taken a little bit of a drop off, and I'm gonna name some variables I think this could like factor in, and you tell me how valid you think they are.
Okay.
All right. So the two I could think of, and Dan Diaz actually helped me think of another one, a fellow contested long two writer, is maybe he's taken a step back athletically this year. Potentially, I
He's 27, right?
Yeah.
That's not likely then.
Yeah, I haven't really seen
Unless
it.
he's out of shape, but like
it could just be variance. And one theory that I think that Dan told me that I think has the most weight out of all these three, Kyle Korver just isn't as scary this year.
That and losing DeMarre Carroll.
Yeah.
Kent Bazemore's kind of filled in that well enough, but at the same point, like when you lose a shooter, the paint gets more clogged.
Exactly. Kent Bazemore has done it for a little bit. His reputation isn't quite DeMarre Carroll's, and perhaps the reason he is shooting so well is because teams are leaving him open more than they left DeMarre Carroll open.
Yeah, to go cover court.
While you could say the same thing about DeMarre Carroll, he had poor shooting numbers before going on before Atlanta, but I don't know. He established himself pretty early on. Especially with their winning streak, I think that definitely made it so that people respected Carroll much earlier than they respect Bazemore, considering that team went like 28-2 in December. And Korver just is a good shooter still, but he's just not as terrifying as he was last season. He was shooting about high 30s, I think, at this point, maybe low 40s. And he was shooting 50% from three last season, and that's a huge gap.
Right.
Obviously. So those are the factors in play for Jeff Teague. I will offer up another trade I think could be interesting. First of all, I don't think Utah should trade for him at all. I'm not even going to think of a fake trade offer unless you can think of one.
I mean, I haven't thought about it for much, but I mean, like, that's not a bad fit.
It's a really good fit. Don't get me wrong. I just think that they don't really have an asset who
Alec
is
Burks.
One good enough. Alec Burks is an option. I guess I didn't. I figured that Hawks wouldn't really want him, but they will need a replacement for Kyle Korver. Alec Burks would be the one trade offer I could think of. Other than that, it's pretty much either Trey Burke or. I'd want to keep Rodney Hood if I was the Jazz.
I don't trade Rodney.
I'd want to keep Dante. I'd want to keep Gordon Hayward. I'd want to keep Favors and Gobert and Lyles and all of them.
No, I think the one because they can.
I guess I forgot about him because he's injured.
Yeah, no, Utah can get on with Alec Burks. We've seen that when he gets hurt.
Yeah.
And I also even next year Teague expiring, so you can leave with him leaving if Dante is good.
Right.
And this way you have a fail-safe for Dante because you haven't seen him be good.
Yeah, exactly.
Out for the year, and it helps you this year because they actually want to do well this year and make the playoffs. I actually like a Teague and then from the Jazz perspective, like you got a young player who's shown potential. He can shoot a little bit.
I think that's the most important reason that you would trade for him if you were Utah. The fact that he can shoot, the fact that he can hopefully kind of develop into more of an off-ball guy in Utah. He obviously still handled it a bunch, but they do have Gordon Hayward and Rodney Hood, who are very competent pick-and-roll players. Maybe not quite as competent as Jeff Teague, but I think they do offer a little bit more playmaking ability because of their elite shooting.
Yeah.
So it would be really interesting to see them all get ball handling opportunities. Hayward, Hood, and Teague, but I think
they could do it.
Yeah, I think all those guys are pretty low maintenance.
Yeah.
Especially Hood being his only second season. He can easily just go into he's probably playing a little out of his role in the first place right now.
Let him catch and shoot.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not going to play all three all at the same time, and those are pretty much and you don't really need to get those opportunities for Trey Burke. And
I'm Trey Burke playing backup for the year, and from Atlanta, I feel like Alec Burks is the guy they wanted Tim Hardaway Jr. to be.
That's a very good point. I think he has an unfair reputation as a non-shooter. When before he got injured, he did shoot 36% from outside the arc. He might not be worth giving up if you're Jazz, just because you're still a team that's looking forward.
Yeah.
And Alec Burks could, some reality, become either your best or second best player or third best behind Hayward and Gobert. I think that's what they hoped for him.
Yeah.
Right now, he's probably the fourth or fifth best. I'd say Hood is probably maybe better than him right now. Alec Burks obviously hasn't had a chance to prove otherwise,
Right.
being injured and all. And Favors is also better than him. And he might be an important piece, but we don't know exactly what the Jazz organization values.
Yeah,
so
and
we'll
it's also, the thing with that is, so future development, right? This is a lesson learned from the Sixers. If you have a point guard that can put guys in better position, they're going to develop better.
Yeah.
So does Jeff Teague help the development of guys like Favors is developing very well, but like Gobert offensively.
That's a very good point.
Hayward or Hood, because Hood's
you can argue that Gobert is already being helped just by Hayward. You know, he's getting his fair share of pick and roll lobs.
No, totally.
Favors is an interesting case. I think he's very difficult to use on offense, especially when Gobert is on the floor, because Gobert kind of takes over the role of the rim runner. But yeah, it could definitely help Hayward and Hood, in terms of like playing off ball. Something they will probably need to do if this team ever wants to be at a level where they can contend. So it would definitely help them realize the identity that they would need, the way they would need to play if they did have Jeff Teague. And then Dante Exum could come in and fill that role, hopefully, and be Jeff Teague and, be a younger version that was more congruent with the team's development.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that's an interesting one. And then we have the New York Knicks, who really want Jeff Teague, but, they want a lot of guys, and they never just seem to have the assets to make it work. So we have Teague for Langston Galloway, Jose Calderon, and top 10 protected first in 2018. We can remove the protections if you want. I don't care.
Do they have their first in 2018?
I believe they do.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds right. Okay. So Langston Galloway is expiring at the end of the season.
Exactly.
So the draw would be the 2018 pick.
Yeah.
But looking at the Knicks, with Porzingis and even with Melo at this point, you think they'll be decent in 2018.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that if I were.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say Jerry and Grant, but I don't know if they would want to. I don't know how interested they are in Grant if they clearly wanted Tim Hardaway Jr. instead of him.
Yeah.
Maybe things have changed a little bit. I guess you could try to throw Kevin Seraphin or Kyle O'Quinn in there, but neither of those two players really moves the needle for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think Milwaukee has interesting things. Obviously, it doesn't really make sense for them. I think the one, as you said, that makes the most sense, and ironically that I didn't talk about that much, was Utah because of Alec Burks. But, there's definitely a lot of risk in doing that if you're Utah also. So you want to talk about Al Horford?
Yeah, I have one Al Horford trade. This guy's much more prepared than me just because he's had time and I haven't.
Yeah, I don't have classes on Thursdays, so, and this is on Thursdays, so that kind of works out.
Yeah. Al Horford for Kevin Love.
Huh. Thinking.
So, from Atlanta, the reason I consider it is if you think that Al Horford's going to leave, but you don't want to quite blow it all the way up, then you get a player in Kevin Love who is, defensive warts and all, you're not going to get a better player than him than free agency.
Right.
You're not going to. And he's under contract for 4 years, so he cannot leave. You put him with Paul Millsap, which is a weird fit a little bit defensively, but having Thiago Splitter, if you can re-sign him after this year, you have a third big man that can kind of work in with both rotations. You're probably not winning a title with that, but you have an interesting team.
It's definitely also great for the development of Dennis Schroeder.
Yeah.
If you want to, if you want to, especially if you want to trade Millsap too, you kind of still retain a player who can, space the floor for Dennis. He's going to need that. He can't play with two traditional big men right now. He can't shoot.
And Love is a guy who I think he'd be with his best coach ever in Budenholzer.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think we'd see much more of the Minnesota Kevin Love in terms of production and usage than we saw in Cleveland.
That's a very good point.
And I think that you're using the best out of Kevin Love then if you're playing him like that.
And then you can either use him as a building block going forward because he is still relatively young, probably a little older than you would like
if you're trying
to blow it up. But even so, we both listened to the Neil O'Shea on the Vertical podcast, and he talked about you can make a trade that looks towards the future, even if it's for a player who's currently good, just because you can maximize his value and then trade him. So that's something they could do with Kevin Love, make him look really good, make him look more appealing than what they traded him for, which is Al Horford on an expiring contract, and Al Horford could help out the Cavaliers. Spacing might be a little cramped with him, with the rotation of him, Tristan Thompson, and Mozgov, especially with LeBron's shooting woes. But he definitely is talented enough to make it work.
Yeah, I think Al Horford is perfect for Cleveland. In the sense, because he can shoot well enough. Like, he's not, like, an amazing three-point shooter, but, like, he's not Timothy Mozgov, And,
like, while he hasn't proven to shoot threes consistently, he still has the 20-footer, and that still provides some level of spacing.
Yeah. He's a guy that has positional versatility. You can play with 4 of the 5. He's good at guarding both positions. He might struggle a little bit with Draymond Green defensively, but, like, Draymond Green would also really struggle with him defensively.
Yeah.
And not, Draymond Green's a great defender, but, like, it's not easy to guard Al Horford.
Yeah. And so Draymond Green would have a lot of trouble navigating Steph Curry, Draymond Green pick and rolls.
Yeah, it's hard, and so he's a much better defender than Kevin Love. And Cleveland's going for it this year and would probably be fine re-signing him. They could then re-sign him because they have the money because they wouldn't have Kevin Love. And I think he fits better with what they want to do. I think he's also better at playing off ball than Kevin
Exactly.
Love.
That's a good point. He's a very talented player. And then this way they can kind of go big with Mozgov and Horford, medium with Horford and Thompson, or small with Thompson and LeBron. So they have 3 different sizes to deal with the Warriors with. Exactly. So that's the versatility.
And if they get the Spurs, then you have you have the
exactly, and then you can go super small with like Love LeBron at center, and then Shumpert, Smith, Kyrie, and Dellavedova. I don't know. They just don't really have that many like guys wings. Like they'll probably have to play Richard Jefferson in the playoffs, much to everyone's chagrin.
Yeah,
just like they had to play Sean Marion last year. So that could definitely help them, though. I definitely think Horford gives them a better chance in the playoffs than Kevin Love.
Yeah.
All right, so that's an interesting one for sure, for both teams. That's now we're going to go on to Paul Millsap. I'm going to start with my lesser favorite one of the two, just so I can lead in. All right, so Paul Millsap. And this is one I wouldn't do if I was the other team. It's just interesting in terms of what they get back for what they give.
Right.
Paul Millsap to the Kings.
Okay.
For Cauley Stein, Macklemore, and Rudy Gay.
Huh. I like that trade a lot for the Kings.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's fair.
Millsap and Boogie together offensively is really interesting.
It's very interesting. They give away all of their prospects. They don't really have picks to give away in the near future. Otherwise, I would do that.
Yeah.
So this is the most I could find in terms
Sacramento
of
is a team that is incentivizing winning now.
Yeah.
Like they want to make a good team for the next 3 years to try to keep Boogie in free agency.
Yeah.
It's what it's and because they're moving into a new building as well.
Yeah.
So they want to be good right now. And this trade makes them better right now. Millsap and Boogie offensively is amazing.
Yeah, great reboundingly. Yeah. It'll survive defensively. I think it's a great fit
defensively. And you get like a guy that's been around enough in Millsap that might be able to help Boogie in terms of maturity. I always think that narrative is overplayed, but
you need a power forward who can. You're not going to be able to play if you're going to like win games. If you're looking to win right now, you're not going to be able to play Willie, Cauley Stein, and Boogie together. The spacing is too cramped. They've been creative a little bit with it. Rondo throwing like the Willie, Cauley Stein lobs, DeMarcus, and them kind of doing the Blake and DeAndre thing.
Yeah, and DeMarcus taking threes.
Yeah, but you definitely are better off with Millsap. It's not even a question.
Oh, not even a question. And, I don't like it for it now.
That's fair.
Macklemore, I think, is a guy that we've always just kind of liked because he's young and was kind of a bouncy prospect and could shoot a little bit, and he's not really shown much in the NBA at this point, and you need to give him a new contract after next year.
That's a good point. I didn't consider the contract aspect.
Yeah, Cauley Stein, I like him as a prospect. He's also reportedly crazy, and his middle name is Trill.
Yeah.
So, and then Rudy Gay is Rudy Gay. So
Rudy Gay definitely wasn't the appeal for the
he was a salary cap.
Yeah.
So I would say no if I'm Atlanta, but I like that trade a lot for the Kings.
Yeah, it's definitely good. What I was thinking was kind of just throwing spaghetti at the wall and see if it sticks with Cauley Stein and Macklemore.
Yeah.
It might just happen that both just don't work out for you, but I think if you can get what one of them was expected to be, which might be less often, less likely than likely, it's definitely worth giving up Millsap for. But
Question.
Again.
So what if you did this? This is the way they could. So instead of Macklemore, they give the Hawks a first-round pick swap. So the Sixers have their pick swap,
Yeah.
and so after that happens, if they
They
don't
get the worst of the.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
interesting.
because they can't give away the pick, they already owe Chicago. So
Right.
if they don't give Chicago the pick,
Yeah.
but yeah. So then they give that to Atlanta a pick swap.
I think that even as complicated as that is probably more enticing than Ben McLemore. You're probably getting out of there with a high lottery pick.
Or at least a decent lottery pick.
Yeah, like a high, as in like 11 through 14.
Although the thing is that if you give them Millsap, I think Kings probably make the playoffs when Chicago gets their first round pick.
Yeah, so it's a lot of complicated because they are the 8th seed right now.
Yeah.
And, Millsap definitely kind of pencils them in to 8th or 7th seed. And yeah, I don't know. We'll think more about that one as we go along. But one that really was really interesting to me, and if you don't like this, I have another layer of it to kind of keep it going. We're gonna go up to Toronto.
Oh, okay. I like this already.
All right, awesome. So we have Paul Millsap for Terrence Ross, Corey Joseph, Patrick Patterson, decent players.
Yeah.
And the lesser of the Knicks Nuggets pick is coming up.
Ooh,
and I have another pot sweetener if this isn't enough for Millsap.
That's really interesting. So, okay.
Also, this is a trade. Like we talked about how we wouldn't actually do these if we were the other teams who weren't the Hawks. This is a trade I'd consider if I was the Raptors.
If I'm the Raptors, I'm just saying I want to win as many games as possible this year.
Because then you have 3 top 8 players at their respective positions. Now you might need a top 3 player to contend. You can argue DeMar DeRozan is close, but that's only because the shooting guard is the field is so thin. But I don't know.
So I'm impressed that you managed to not. Did you include Jonas Valanciunas? You didn't include Jonas.
He's the next one if you don't think.
I might have to get either Jonas or a first-round pick if I'm Atlanta for Paul Millsap.
You are technically getting a first-round pick. You're getting the lesser of the Knicks Nuggets.
Oh, I forgot about that. Sorry.
Yeah.
So you're getting
Ross, Joseph, and Patterson.
Ross, Joseph, Patterson. This is gonna sound really weird. If I'm Toronto, I really don't want to give up Joseph.
Interesting.
Especially, Lowry just got hurt, didn't he?
Yes.
I
don't know, actually. I just said yes reflexively.
Having a backup point guard is really, really helpful in the playoffs if you want to win stuff, and you can find one. But Joseph is a really good guy for them to have.
It's very good. They just really don't have that many bad contracts otherwise.
Yeah.
They're giving.
Joseph's not even a bad contract.
They don't really have any bad contracts that I can. So I didn't want to really include Joseph. He was kind of the last one I wanted to include.
Yeah.
You can maybe get back. I don't know. You'd have to trade elsewhere because Joseph's role is important.
Yeah.
That's definitely a drawback, but here's my pot sweetener. And you said you wouldn't do this if you were the Raptors, but let's say the Hawks, this isn't enough for the Hawks to get back. All right, so Millsap and Splitter for Ross, Joseph, Patterson, Valanciunas, cap filler, and the lesser of the Nuggets next pick.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the first trade makes sense for both teams. Until the second one, they're both fine.
Yeah, I think Splitter might help.
And ultimately,
Toronto more this year also.
Yeah, because of backup center, and then because rim protection.
Protection.
And you don't have to plan that much. You don't have to worry about him getting hurt. Hopefully.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I'd rather have Paul Millsap than a backup point guard. So I would do the.
And they have Biyombo too.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So Splitter might make more sense with it if they're trying to win right now.
Yeah, I would try to. If I'm Toronto, I'd try to do the first one.
Yeah.
Clearly. But yeah, I like that.
Leaving.
I like some kind of combination of that.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
Would you consider if you're Toronto doing the same kind of deal for Horford?
Let's see about that. I'm not sure. I would definitely. It definitely would be interesting. It's not a bad fit. I just think Paul Millsap works especially good just because of the 3-point shooting. Because that's 2 of their needs, just more 3-point shooting and a solid power forward.
Yeah.
But Horford could definitely work. I just haven't really quite calibrated what the trade would be.
Yeah, the reason I would rather have Millsap than Horford is that you get Millsap for 4 years.
Exactly.
How long you get Horford. I'm just curious to see what you think about
it. Yeah, I know for sure. I think Horford would be a fine fit as well.
Yeah.
So there's a few other teams that could be in a similar situation as the Hawks. Let me just preface this by saying...
you're moving off the Hawks?
Unless you want to keep going.
Real quick note.
Yeah.
Over the summer, Orlando tried to sign Millsap.
Yeah.
Do you think there could be like a Millsap for Aaron Gordon, Channing Frye?
That's a good point.
Like something like that. Like I'm not fully fleshed out here, but something along the lines of that.
Yeah, I didn't consider Orlando. That's a very good point.
I don't think I do that from Orlando, just because I don't see the point in trading.
Maybe Millsap for Tobias Harris.
That's interesting. I don't know. I don't think I do this from Orlando. Just kind of with the younger guy.
Yeah. The thinking would be like Tobias might not fit long term.
Yeah,
but
you can. The way I would go for like Aaron Gordon, Channing Frye, and like another contract. I forget what other contracts they have, but other contracts as well.
Yeah.
Willie Green, stuff like that.
I didn't even think of Orlando. Good point. Yeah.
If you can get a first round pick out of them, then that's
exactly.
But getting Aaron Gordon as a young player is really nice for the Hawks.
So yeah, the Raptors would be an interesting landing spot for Millsap. The Magic obviously would. Again, probably not the best idea if you're the Magic to trade for Millsap. But again, there has to, in order for, unless you're the Warriors or a team that can win the championship, you're not. It's not like the Cavs trade is the only one that and the Raptors maybe one is the only one that really I would want to do if I was both teams.
Yeah, I'd agree.
You shouldn't trade for these guys if you and you're basically being a sucker if you let Atlanta get your future assets for one of these guys.
Definitely.
Not that they're not good, but just because they won't get you into a place where you can contend for a championship.
Okay. Yeah, so anyways, let's go on.
Awesome. I just wanted to talk about the Clippers. In fact, actually, I didn't want to talk about the Clippers because I think no one's getting traded.
The one thing I can imagine happening is the CP3 for Kyrie thing.
I think there's more noise than actual. Again, obviously, it's not probably happening, but I just don't really I like it for the Cavaliers. What is Kyrie ever going to be better than Chris Paul is right now?
No, but it's more that's a fair question to ask. But the reason I would consider if I'm the Clippers is, we said they're not being Golden State for the next 2 or 3 years, and in 4 years, Kyrie will be better than Chris Paul, and Chris Paul might not even be on the team in 4 years, regardless of his contract.
Oh yeah, Kyrie will be better than Chris Paul at age 34.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and if you want to win a championship and you don't think you can do so right now, let's maximize this team when they can win a championship. And a combination of Blake and Kyrie and DeAndre Jordan probably, in a few years, can still probably win a championship.
Can Kyrie keep Blake and DeAndre happy?
Chris Paul's good at passing the ball. I don't think he's a very good team mentor.
I'm talking about just getting him enough touches. It's possible. I don't know. DeAndre will definitely have games where he just doesn't touch the ball a lot of the time.
Yeah, but
unless he gets a rebound.
I don't think Chris Paul. I mean, all good point guards care are my big guys getting enough touches, etc. That is very important and something that should be focused on. And Kyrie's not shown the ability to do that. So it's a very fair question. At the same time, DeAndre almost left because he didn't like Chris Paul.
That's a good point. Yeah, getting touches isn't the only important thing to be happy on a team.
Yeah, Chris Paul just yells at guys constantly. And really
Kyrie won't do that.
95% of the time.
Kyrie doesn't care. Maybe they'll have to yell at Kyrie, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. So it's such a different dynamic that I don't know if it'll lead to unhappiness or not. And
right.
I also Blake's contract ends kind of soon. I would be stunned if he left the Clippers.
Right.
So I would. The one guy on that team I would refuse to trade in any circumstances.
Yeah, and there has been talk about trading him, but that's really just
crazy.
Kind of
he punched being a his face,
being a prisoner in the moment because they had won a few games even though he was injured.
And he punched a guy in the face, which isn't good, but you don't trade a guy because he punches someone in the face.
Right, exactly.
Look at Jaleel.
So speaking of Jaleel, we could talk about the Rockets. I really don't want to go over Dwight Howard trades. I don't really
not that exciting.
Yeah, it's not that exciting.
The one thing that I'd be interested in is Kevin Love for Dwight, but that's even.
Yeah, we've already talked about that outside the podcast ad nauseum.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Sixers then.
So a trade I found online that I did not come up with, and I don't really know how I feel about it. Jaleel for CJ McCollum.
I'd say I'd keep Jaleel, but I had to think about it.
Isn't that really hard?
Yeah.
You factor in, so CJ McCollum's due an extension after next year, and he's probably going to get a max because he's really, 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 really good. You factor in positional stuff. For the Sixers, if you have Embiid healthy, you cannot keep Jaleel, Embiid, and Okafor.
Yeah.
Jaleel, Embiid, and Noel. Yeah. Those three will not work together. So you're looking at dealing with likely one of Noel or Jaleel. It probably makes more sense to deal Noel because of their contract length, but Jaleel also has more value because of that. CJ McCollum is an incredible player.
Yeah.
Incredible. And so the ability to have a shooting guard as good as CJ McCollum.
And point guard, you could probably convert him to a point guard, honestly.
Having a player as good is at a position where you don't have good guys is very, very valuable.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And the reason I think that Portland might consider it, among other stuff, is that if you want to win a championship, having a backcourt that plays zero defense is really, really hard. And CJ McCollum might end up being a decent defender, but he doesn't really have the body for it.
Right.
He will never be a lockdown guy.
Especially if he has to play shooting guard. I can see him becoming an average defender at point guard. I think that just because he's teammates with Damian Lillard doesn't mean he can't become a good defender one day, unlike Damian, as he's shown. But yeah, I don't really see a path to a championship with that backcourt.
Right,
and they could make me eat my words, and I could be featured on Damian Lillard's Scott Levine diss track one day, but that future is very hazy right now.
Yeah, it's really the reason that Clay and Steph work is that Clay's a very good defender.
Yeah, and Steph's an average defender.
And so if you put McCollum and Lillard together and then have the rest of the three players on that team be really, really good defensively, maybe that's something that you can get by with, but it's still very, 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 very hard. Whereas if you have Okafor and Lillard, Okafor is not very good defensively at this point, but he's someone that can probably transition to an average defensive center.
Yeah.
And you can get by with that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I always thought the Okafor will never be able to play good defense thing is kind of overblown. He's looked much skinnier now. He's very tall. He has a very long reach, very big hands. I don't see why he can't. I don't see why he can't at least become a competent defender.
He'll never be able to guard power forward, stretch four as well, but around the rim he could be fine.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about Nerlens because he's been playing well as soon as Okafor went out. He had a nasty dunk against Andre Drummond. Andre was still able to get 18 rebounds against him, but Andre does that against everybody, so it's really hard to say, that's just Noel proving he can't rebound at the center position, although that might be an issue. We don't really know yet.
He's been on it this year.
Yeah, okay.
Awful.
But
Noel's a center, though. He's not a power forward. He can guard four as well, but offensively it's just so hard.
Yes, I'll read some splits for you, or lineups, plus minuses. Nerlens and Jeremy Grant, negative 6.9.
That makes sense.
Keep in mind the average for the Sixers is around negative 10.
Is this the entire season?
Yes.
Okay. All of these numbers are going to be valid. At the same time, I would like to see numbers pre and post Ish Smith because both offensively and defensively we've just been a better team.
That's a very good point. And I didn't factor that in. And then you have Nerlens and Robert Covington, negative 10.2, about average. And then Nerlens and Professor Oak, about Okafor, for people who don't know that nickname, negative 20.
Yeah, they were. They've not been good of late. They've been slightly better of late. And they're someone who I don't want to pair together long term.
Right.
But the first 31 games of the season, we didn't have a point guard, and the team was in such a disarray that's really skewing that number.
Oh, no, for sure.
It's not saying that they're good, but it's not completely accurate.
Yeah, sure. And I think we have to let we'll get a little bit more of a sample size as the season goes on.
Right.
And that'll be something to watch out for if Noel and Embiid Okafor, all these centers, can play together with NBA level point guard, which Ish Smith has proven to be.
Yeah.
And it's shocking that Kyle Lowry got over to him in the Eastern All-Star voting, honestly.
It's a travesty.
And we just saw in a tweet today before entering this room that D'Angelo Russell might be on the trading block.
Yeah,
you've wanted him ever since
the draft.
We saw that one article about case for D'Angelo Russell at number 1, Chad Ford's article, and we're obviously pretty disappointed when the Lakers picked him at number 2.
Yeah,
Ethan's a Sixers fan, by the way.
No, so the trade that I've been asking about for Russell for the months now would be Noel and the Lakers' first round pick for Russell. And Nick Young's contract.
Right.
I can't imagine the Lakers actually like Nick Young. And I also think that the Lakers' biggest priority this season at this point is keeping their first round pick.
Yeah.
Now, does it suck to give up your first round pick last year? Yeah, that's pretty crappy. At the same time, they have a point guard going forward in Jordan Clarkson, who we both think is pretty good.
Yeah,
He's a
he'll be
restricted
fine.
free agent this offseason, but it means that you have a good chance to keep him. They're going to have tons of cap space anyway, so that really shouldn't be that much of a problem.
Yeah, especially when Kobe retires.
Yeah, like he'll be able to be locked in there. Then that allows you to, in Nerlens Noel, you get a guy who is just so good defensively. And when he's used right offensively, he can catch lobs.
Yeah.
He looks like his potential is a much better version of DeAndre Jordan.
And it would definitely make up for a lot of Julius Randle's defensive deficiencies.
They're Kentucky guys, they get along.
Yeah.
Which is weird to assume, but it seems to kind of work out.
Boogie has kind of like created that pervading notion that all Kentucky players love each other. So yeah. I guess it's a thing.
It seems enough of a thing to work. And ultimately, we might need to give up Jaleel to get Russell, which I think I do, but I'm also not quite sure, just because, like, in terms of value right now, Jaleel definitely has more than Russell, but regardless, I think the trade that, and Lakers-wise, like, you could either just try to lose the rest of your games than probably keep the pick, but this way you cannot lose the pick, which is a much better feeling than needing to lose a lot to keep the pick.
For sure. Yeah, and you could argue that actually that they don't really care about their pick if it falls out of the top three, just because they're the Lakers and they're probably thinking Simmons or bust right now.
Yeah. And like me trying to explain the Lakers' thinking is kind of impossible.
Yeah, Jimmy Buss and
they have
Genie Buss.
Byron
I don't know
Scott
what they think.
As their head coach.
Yeah.
He's still employed.
Yeah.
Like I cannot tell you what is going on inside their minds.
You might think it might be a little different how they approach things next year because Kobe won't be there, and the Byron Scott thing feels like it's for Kobe.
Yeah.
But yeah, you never know. You never know.
And even I would be a little like given the Sixers. I don't know if I accepted that trade because it seems nice on the surface to get Russell, but if we get the Lakers pick, if that falls to 4, Nerlens in the 4th pick might be able to get us more than DeAndre.
Yeah, it might be a little much for one player. That might. Or like one unproven player.
The trade that I was considering is if that happens and we get the first pick overall as well, we Nerlens in number 4 for the 2nd overall pick, and then we get Ingram and Simmons, depending on what team falls to the 2 spot.
Yeah, that would be definitely interesting. And if like the Pelicans say fall to the 2 spot, it's moving down 2 picks to get finally someone you can pair with Anthony Davis is not a bad sell at all.
And they can get rid of a Sheik contract in that as well. And a few other things. I've mentioned to you before off the podcast, but the team that I'm really fascinated to watch, I think every single team in the league should call, is Minnesota.
Yeah.
Because we don't know who is making decisions for Minnesota. This is a team that it's very sad, but the Flip Thunder's
that's why when I kind of winced when I first heard you say that, because I'm like, well, come on, man.
Yeah, it's really sad, but this is a business where you have to, like, look at the Sixers and the Kings over the summer.
Yeah.
Like, you get the best value by picking on the worst-run teams, and right now Minnesota's in disarray. With Flip Saunders passing away, their head coach is Sam Mitchell, who doesn't know what he's doing.
Glenn Taylor has not shown good discretion in hiring.
And they might be trying to sell the team.
Yeah.
And when you have a team that might be in sale, anything.
Glenn Taylor employed David Kahn enough.
Right. But, like, when you add in the potential to sell the team component, that means that anything is on the table.
Yeah.
You're not getting talent, you're not getting games. But, like, anything else on that team, in terms of players or future picks, whatever, could be potentially a thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, if you have, like, an owner just maybe either eager to just get some wins on just for posterity's sake or is leaving the team, it definitely opens up a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, so, like, I'm not saying that they will make a stupid trade, but if there's someone to do something stupid, Minnesota's not a bad bet.
Yeah.
There's also the feeling of once you get both Wiggins and Towns, maybe you don't need any more young guys, which isn't true, but like maybe they have that thought, and then putting another pick in potentially. It's one of those type of things.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's the one team.
All right, so we have 5 minutes left.
Okay.
I thought we'd do our last segment called "Hey, that guy's been doing okay this season." Do you want to go first?
This season or this week?
No, sorry, this week.
Troy Daniels.
Troy Daniels.
So he only had one real good game, and I know that kind of takes the definition of weak, but the game he had against Sacramento, was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Just because he did his thing of hitting a lot of threes. That's kind of what Troy Daniels does. But it was second overtime, they're down by 2, 9 seconds left. Troy Daniels just gets the ball, looks at the rim, and chucks a three-pointer up, and he makes it.
Yeah.
And it wins them the game because the Kings can't score in the next possession. But it was just the funniest looking thing, and he played very, very well that game, so I get through and here and talk about how then after the game, he's asked about it, and he just randomly decides to say on the previous play that Kemba Walker screwed up. And it was just like, you're Troy Daniels, the 15th man on the team. You're calling out the best player on the team? Who are you?
Exactly. That was fantastic. I remember laughing about that.
So Troy Daniels.
Yeah, he had around like 28 points, I believe, that game.
Yeah.
Mine is former Sixer, Drew Holiday.
Oh, he has been good. Yeah, he has been good.
Drew Holiday, not only on the offensive end, where he scored 32 against the Rockets on Monday night, but also on the defensive end. We're really seeing kind of like peak Drew Holiday defensively lately, and I think that's because he's back to being healthy, and he's not just a good defender. He's a destructive defender.
Yeah, he's like, I love Drew Holiday. He was my favorite Sixer in that horrible, horrible Doug Collins era. Like I've always seen a lot of potential in him and ability to do things, like really impressive things. That trade to the Pelicans was not a good trade for the Pelicans in any way, shape, or form, but it looks a lot worse because of the injuries that Drew suffered after going to New Orleans.
Right.
Talent-wise, he's a guy that he can shoot threes. He can defend well. He's a smart passer. He doesn't turn the ball over that much anymore. Like, he has a lot of really good things about his game, and I love to see him playing well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And you can see that Anthony Davis enjoys it too. They have a great chemistry. Probably the best passer on the team. Better passer than Tyreek.
That's
and
hard.
better at finding lobs for Davis. So Anthony Davis has been playing better recently, and you can also contribute Drew's return to that a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So good job, Drew. Had a lot of really cool steals against James Harden in the game I watched. I actually ended up just taking an afternoon nap during that game because it was kind of boring, but also I was really tired. So good job, Drew. All right, so we have 2 minutes left. So any other comments regarding the things you wanted to talk about in the past or this past hour? I mean, I don't have any.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
We pretty much hit a lot.
We definitely covered a lot of podcasts. Yeah, this was a good podcast. When I really have Thursday to plan everything, and then I can just ask a bunch of random questions. Things usually work out. So let's keep doing this.
Yeah. Follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook.
Yep. At Contested Long Twos, 2 as in the number, not as in the TWO. That's too many letters for Twitter. And then you can also find us on Contested Long Twos at Facebook, or find this podcast later on contestedlongtwos.wordpress.com. And we also have a lot of cool articles. Ethan wrote his All-Star ballot this week, and I think you'll find it entertaining, let me just say that. And Jake Medelman, who will be on the podcast in the upcoming weeks, wrote his mid-season awards. Then we also have something coming up from Brian King, which is more of a serious All-Star thing, kind of contrast Ethan's goofy one. And that's it for this week, and keep taking contested long twos. We'll think of a better one. Anyway.
Bye.